Make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. Also seeing a lot more of our short form content go up on my Twitter page as well. Trying to get to 500 followers. We are approaching that mark. I believe we're only a couple followers away from making that happen. So give me a follow over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at StoneShields_. All right, our first question here on our mailbag is from Dalton Mitchell. And Dalton says, should the Bengals draft an edge rusher or go and pick one up in free agency or trade? My pick is Chase Young. Very good question, Dalton. Appreciate your interaction here with our mailbag. I do believe in some capacity Cincinnati needs to find a way to get another edge rusher in, whether that's through free agency or the draft. We will see. To be honest with you, I don't have a preference. If there's a guy in the draft there at 17 that's sitting there that you really like a Michael Williams, then obviously you take him. Obviously, free agency happens, though, before the draft, and that might need to get addressed then as well. I personally think it would be a good idea to bring in another veteran player that can rush the passer. I love your Chase Young suggestion. I would love to see him in Cincinnati, former Ohio State Buckeye, of course. Would love to come back to the state of Ohio, I am sure, and was picked in that Joe Burrow NFL draft. And, a young guy that, his career hasn't really panned out the way a lot of people expected. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate each and every year. That really hasn't worked out for him, but I still think he is a very valuable pass rusher, especially if you put him across from a guy like Trey Hendrickson. You really can make some noise in that department. So as far as a preference between draft or free agency, don't really have one, but I definitely think it would behoove the Bengals to bring in a veteran guy that has the ability to rush the passer. Tim Tyra, would Malaki Starks be an upgrade at safety? Absolutely. I love Malaki Starks, everything about him as a football player. Didn't have the best year in 2024. I don't know if he regressed, but he didn't make as many splashy plays as he did in 2023. But if Malaki Starks is sitting there at number 17, I take him, and I do not think twice about it. He's a guy that could come in at that safety position, start immediately, and make an immediate impact. He's great in the run game, and he's a great tackler as well. How many missed tackles did the Bengals defense have in 2024? Malaki Starks could come in and clean a lot of that up immediately. Also has great ball skills. So if Starks is there at 17, you take him. And like I said, you don't think twice about it. From Santiago Culpepper, thoughts on the Erick All Jr. news? Well, unfortunately, it's very sad, obviously, is your first reaction to the news. You kind of knew it coming in, though. Had the injury concerns, the medical concerns in college, had two very serious injuries in college at Iowa and at Michigan, tore his ACL once in college, had the major spine issue in college as well. So that was always the red flag with Erick All Jr. So my reaction is, man, this is unfortunate. But now the urgency to bring back Mike Gesicki, I feel like, is even higher, despite the fact that they play tight end, but they don't really play the same position, so to speak. Gesicki more is kind of a slot receiver guy, and Erick All can bring a lot to you in the run blocking and pass blocking game as well. So this really hurts for the Cincinnati Bengals football team. There is absolutely no two ways around it. Hopefully he's back ready to go in 2026. But now, a position that you thought you didn't really have to worry too much about at that tight end spot, you might need to address via the draft or in free agency. But Tanner McLaughlin, who you took in the 6th round last year, he wasn't able to find himself onto the field. We'll see if he can develop into a guy that Cincinnati can trust in 2025. Will the Bengals bring back Mike Gesicki? It is the pinned comment of today's video. Let me know in the comment section. Type B for bring back or L for let leave. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. From Glacier, would you want Aaron Donald or J.J. Watt to come out of retirement to play for the Bengals for only one season? Well, J.J. Watt, he's done for sure. He's been out of the game for a little bit too long, I would say, at this point. Prime J.J. Watt, yeah, that would be great. And if Prime J.J. Watt wasn't playing for the Houston Texans all those years that you lost to him in the playoffs, you probably would have won some of those, or at least one of those playoff games. But that's not going to happen with J.J. Watt. It's fun to fantasize about. It's a good question. I appreciate it. And as far as Aaron Donald, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want Aaron Donald? One of the best defensive players to ever play the game. Obviously, there's some awkwardness with him, ending the Super Bowl, sacking your quarterback, not technically sacking him, but getting home on your quarterback and just completely going right by Big Q, Mr. Undrafted Quentin Spain. But, it would be great to have Aaron Donald back, but unfortunately that is not realistic. Bengals got to figure out who they're going to bring in at that position, though, because you can't just keep running it back with the guys that you have at that defensive end spot. From Andrew, do you think the Bengals will draft a tight end if Tyler Warren stays for the 17th round, or do you think we're going to stick with drafting a defender? I think I know what you meant, Andrew. If Tyler Warren's there at 17, do you take him? It's an interesting question. Because at that 17 spot in the draft, you might be in a spot where, hey, you just take the best player available. And if Tyler Warren's there at 17, he's probably the best player available. But I just think your defense needs so much help. Like, it would be tough to, be looking at Tyler Warren and just pass up on him. It would be tough, right? But keep in mind, Erick All Jr. is going to be back in 2026, and you really like what you saw from him at the start of his rookie year. Going to be without him in 2025. I just think taking a tight end in the first round, it would be enticing because Tyler Warren's such a great player. But I think you got to go defense in the first round unless an interior offensive lineman completely blows you away. But to me, that's a defensive pick at 17 overall. We'll continue with our show here in a moment. But first, want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Prize Picks. The big game is almost here. It's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. That starting quarterback, by the way, is Patrick Mahomes. That is the free square. If he throws for at least 1 yard, you win. If you're correct on at least one or more stat projection, you can win real cash. Check out the promos tab to tail any of our Super Sweat Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of the $1 million in promo funds. They also have the Flex Play here at Prize Picks. Really enjoy the Flex Play. The best thing about the Flex Play is you don't need to get all 3 correct to win. You can just win 2 of those selections and have an opportunity to double your money. There's the free square I was just talking about there with Patrick Mahomes, more than half a passing yard. Obviously, you take it. Saquon Barkley, more than 112.5 rushing yards. That guy's been on an absolute tear. You could argue he's the MVP of the league. That's a lot of fun there as well. And Xavier Worthy, more than 5.5 rushing yards, perhaps on some jet sweep stuff. Andy Reid could get a little creative, find a way to get Xavier Worthy the ball as a rusher. That is our Flex Play slate here at Chat Sports. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Dr. B, do you think Al Golden can get Njongmeta good enough to be a starter? Ooh, interesting question here from Dr. B. I wouldn't say a starter, right? Logan Wilson's going to be one of your starters. You have a decision to make with Jermaine Pratt. Do you cut him? Perhaps draft a guy or what? Njongmeta's going to make the team again, and I know that Al Golden's going to develop him into an even better player, and he's going to continue to play on special teams for you. As far as being a starter out there, every snap, probably not. Obviously was an undrafted guy. Plenty of undrafted guys starting the league. It's not necessarily about that. I really like Maema Njongmeta, but I think if Cincinnati ultimately is going with him at that linebacker spot as a starter, there's probably some injuries that have occurred elsewhere. But I've got a lot of confidence in Al Golden. I've got a lot of confidence in Maema Njongmeta. So if he develops the way that Al Golden has developed a lot of other players, certainly could be a possibility for Cincinnati. From It's K1 SWN, you think we bring B.J. Hill back for the 2025 season? I would consider it unlikely, to be completely honest with you, to bring B.J. Hill back. I think you like the the youth that you have at that defensive tackle spot. Obviously, your defense was dreadful in last season, but what you saw there from McKinley Jackson and what you saw there from Chris Jenkins Jr., your second and third round pick respectively last year, you saw a lot of good things. And you're bringing in Al Golden, who of course was at Notre Dame for the past 3 years. I think you have a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to develop those guys. I like B.J. Hill a lot. Bengals legend. Been a part of a lot of great football here in Cincinnati, but I would be surprised if he was back next season. From Felicia, will Al Golden get the Bengals defense turned around? Absolutely. I am really ecstatic about Al Golden. I think Zac Taylor hit it out of the park with this hire. Al Golden was great when he was with the team in 2020 and 2021. I'm expecting more of the same. His press conference really blew me away, the things he said, kind of how he intends to install his defense, develop his young players. That's the key word, right? When you talk about Al Golden, is development. That is why he is here. You have all these young draft picks that haven't really lived up to their expectation. And the hope is that Golden's going to be able to develop them so they can, be competent players for you out there defensively. I'm ecstatic about it. I love everything about Al Golden. I'm excited. And more importantly, you don't need this to be a top 10 defense. You need it to be a competent defense. Look what you have offensively. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, he very nearly made the playoffs at 9-8 with one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. I would argue probably the worst for most of the year. You just don't have to be that bad. So the bar that you need to cross for Al Golden really is not that high, and I have the utmost faith that he's going to be able to make it happen. What's your confidence level in Al Golden? Scale it for us in the comments section, 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Here we go again from Tim Tyra. Is Zac Taylor's job on the line now? Could this be his last year depending on what happens? Yeah, absolutely. I think, we talked about Zac Taylor a ton throughout the season. A lot of people calling for his job, whatever. It was kind of ludicrous to me at that point to be calling for his job. But I would say, yeah, I think he starts out the season not necessarily on the hot seat, but if you lose your first couple of games again, that seat is crank that seat up, essentially, if Zac Taylor is not able to get it done early on in the season. If you miss the playoffs again, I think there is a very real possibility that you do fire him. This team, this roster, you got the best quarterback in the National Football League. You got too many good pieces to miss the playoffs again in 2025. CWT, what is your opinion on the mock that says we take offense round 1? I don't know exactly which mock you're referring to. If it's an interior offensive lineman that you fall in love with, okay. But if you're taking a tight end or a receiver or a running back, that to me is not a good decision for the Cincinnati Bengals. You got holes all over your defense. You really can just pick any defensive player in the draft that you think is really, really good, and they're going to have an opportunity to make an impact for you immediately, whether it's safety, corner, linebacker, pass rusher, interior defensive lineman. You could use help everywhere on the defensive side of the ball. Now, if you're enjoying this mailbag, we appreciate you. Sub now for more. We're going to be doing these every single Wednesday. It's going to be a staple on our live show. Don't miss out on any of our mailbags. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Bengals TV. Do you believe in our cornerbacks to do what needs to be done? Dalton Mitchell. Good question. I really was a fan of Daxville and what he was doing early on in the season. I might even go as far as to say if Daxville doesn't get hurt, the Bengals make the playoffs. I know it's kind of a bold statement to make, but I kind of believe it. We'll see the player he looks like coming back from the injury. Cam Taylor-Britt concerns me. Even with Al Golden coming in, I'm not exactly sure you can roll him out there as a starter on your defense. So corner's a spot that I think is just as important as pass rusher that you need on this defense. And if the Bengals took a corner in the first round, I would absolutely love that as well. I also think they need to bring in a veteran corner. You just have youth all over that room. You at least need one voice in there that's kind of been around the block. They don't have that at this point. So to answer your question, I don't know if I do believe in the corners that you have right now. Josh Newton certainly showed some promise as a fifth-round pick. I'm probably higher on Josh Newton than Cam Taylor-Britt, to be completely honest with you. Hopefully DJ Turner and Dax Hill, respond well coming back from their respective injuries, but I think new pieces in that cornerback room are very much a need. You think if we don't pay Jamar Chase, we let him walk? I'm going to go out there and say there's no way that this team screws up the Jamar Chase deal. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. They're going to find a way to make him the highest paid non-quarterback to ever play this game. And I think they feel really good about their opportunity to do that. Jamar Chase does not want to leave Joe Burrow. He wants to be in Cincinnati for the long haul with his guy, Joe Burrow. And I've got a lot of confidence that Cincinnati is going to be able to get it done. As far as Higgins and Henderson, my confidence level is not that high. But with Jamar, they'll figure it out.